Did Bam Adebayo just announce to the rest of the world that his game is going to change? We break down the start of the Bam Bam Splash era on Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, Monday to Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members, and today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We'll talk about another impressive game for Kel'el Ware at Summer League and whether or not he's made the case to start as a rookie. Plus, we've got some injury news out of Summer League and an update on Josh Richardson's return from an injury. But let's start with Bam Adebayo and Team USA. If the Heat were looking for another reason to experiment with Bam at power forward this season, then his performance on Wednesday in Team USA's win over Serbia in a friendly provided maybe the greatest case yet. He played mostly at power forward alongside Anthony Davis in the second unit front court. Bam finished with 17 points on 6 of 9 shooting, including, and here's the kicker, 3 of 5 from three-point range. He also had 8 rebounds, 3 assists. All of this in 19 minutes, was just simply one of the best players on the court in this game, and he did it mostly playing power forward. What does this mean, David?
It means everything. It means the world to Miami. It shows that this transformation that we've been that he started, right? That he kind of tweaked, that he started incorporating late last season out of necessity, that he's kind of hinted at through Udonis Haslem, making comments himself, thinly veiled and maybe even slightly overt comments about wanting to play the 4 or transition to a player who can stretch the floor. And then to see this evolution manifest when you're playing for Team USA at the highest stage, I think it's absolutely the beginning of things to come. And I know that people are resistant to it. We need to see it. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, it has to manifest every game out in an NBA court. And I totally understand that viewpoint. But that doesn't change the fact that the groundwork has been being laid down for a while. And I think we're starting to see everything kind of just develop at just the right time as the season is set to begin in a couple of months. I think it's fantastic. Bam looks legit. I know the floor is shorter. I know the court is smaller. I don't care. We wanted him to shoot threes. We've wanted him to shoot threes for multiple seasons now. There he is out on the floor of Team USA, laughing it up with LeBron James, laughing it up with the other Splash brother, Steph Curry. This is fantastic. I'm so jazzed up about seeing this. I just think it's great. I really do. I don't know what's going to happen, whether he plays the 4 or the 5, and I know we'll talk about that. But for him to be able to make 3-pointers a part of his offensive repertoire more regularly, I love to see it.
Yeah, you mentioned LeBron James walking off the court, looking back next to Steph Curry, looking back at Bam Adebayo, calling him a Splash brother, the next Splash brother. Yep. Not sure I'm ready to go that far, although I do appreciate the sentiment. But I love watching Bam. My first takeaway watching this game, even before getting into the 3-point stuff, I love watching Bam play with other superstars. And I mean, this is no slight to Jimmy Butler, but we know how Jimmy approaches 80% of the games he plays in a season. He don't care, right? But when you see him like passing to LeBron James on a lob, who's running down the court, fast pace, making the right cut, or making the hockey assist to Drew Holiday, who backwards passes it to Steph Curry in the corner for a 3-pointer. This is why Bam needs to play with other star players, like the undrafted stuff and all this kind of. It's really cool. And look, I don't expect the Heat to put a super team of Team USA together, or a super team like Team USA together. But I would like to see him play with more high level talent, high floor talent players.
I don't even know
that can help him show off these other parts of his game.
I don't even know that it's the talent. It's just the fact that, and I know it sounds like we've been slowly pecking at Jimmy and everything else over the course of the offseason, but it's just, there's this contrast of style between, you got guys like Bam and Jovic and Terry Rozier and Jaime that just fly up the court. We saw that on spurts here and there throughout the course of the season when Jimmy's not there, and then Jimmy comes out and it's like slowly walking the ball up court, kind of camping
No, that's a
out in
good.
the corner.
We've talked a lot about how they just don't fit, and it's almost remarkable how much success they've had together, considering
Despite
how poor of a basketball fit they are. And that, no, maybe you're right. Maybe that's the point. Is if you're gonna build around Bam going forward, you want to play him with high, because that second unit is Bam. It's Anthony Davis, who can get up and down the court. It's Devin Booker. It's Anthony Edwards a lot of the time. And it's Tyrese Halliburton. It's Tyrese Halliburton, who is the fastest.
Pushing the ball.
Nobody pushes the pace like Tyrese Halliburton in the entire league. Yeah. So maybe you can't get Halliburton, but if you're going to build around Bam going forward, it's okay, up the tempo a little bit more. And maybe it's with him at power forward. So let's get back to that part here, because he is having so much success at the 4 position, and he's played that position for mostly. He played a little bit of center in this game, but mostly in garbage time when this thing was over, when Miami made their run that Bam was a part of. And he was the best center on the floor. He was better than Embiid. Anthony Davis was fine, but he was the best front court player in this game. But going back to the 3-point shooting part of this, of the 2 makes that he had, made 3 shots from 3-point range. 2 of them were from the corner. And I find that really interesting, because the first one he made in the first quarter was off of the splash action that the Heat love to run. They usually run it for guys like Highsmith, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, these guys over the years, where you essentially have a teammate set a down screen near the baseline, a couple of feet in front of the shooter in the corner against the shooter's defender. And so that's just going to create a little bit it's a timing play, but it creates a little bit of room for that shooter, obviously in the corner, to catch and shoot. And that has been the bread and butter of Miami's 3-point shooting offense for the last 3 years. And we rarely see Bam Adebayo in that spot, because he's the playmaking hub in the middle of the floor as the 5, or to your point, he's the one setting that screen. Eric Spoelstra last year told Bam, stop practicing your corner threes, practice the above the break from the middle of the floor, the straightaway threes, because those are the ones that are going to be available to you in the offense. Literally told Bam that, and Bam did that, and then towards the tail end of the season, Bam started taking and making those shots. He shot 36% from 3-point range last year on like 70-something three-pointers, low volume. Only 7 of his three-pointers last year were from the corner. That is a very small amount. Now, he shot like 43% from the corner, which is better than what he made from the above the break three-pointers. But if you're going to, you can't get to those corner threes if Bam is playing center, is my point here. But if you're playing him at power forward with another screen setter, another guy in the middle of the floor, and he's able to drift into the corner, then maybe that's the biggest key to unlocking Bam as a floor spacer, is doing it with him at power forward, which isn't a novel concept, but I wanted to explain the X's and O's behind it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how it'll work out with Miami's current, roster construction. And there are options there, obviously, but there's also issues with each of the players that are available. You got Thomas Bryant, you got Kevin Love, you got Kel'el Ware. Those are the 3 guys that could ostensibly play center position to allow Bam to kind of slide down. None of whom are Anthony Davis. We're talking about the fact that you can play alongside AD and you can experiment that way, because between AD and Bam, you've got, I think, likely alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 3 best and most mobile and interchangeable defenders in the NBA who can guard positions 1 through 5, etc. So it allows for different wrinkles there. I'm just trying to think of it.
And not to mention also on Team USA, legit floor spacers. No Jimmy Butler on the court. No, like legit just floor spacers all over the court. Steph Curry.
Yeah, he's not going to have that same spacing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point too. So I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, of all the options, and I know we'll talk a little bit about them later on in the show too, but I think I'm wondering if Kevin Love playing alongside Bam might be the best in terms of that interchangeability. Whereas, Kevin can play the 4, the guy who can space from the corner. He can space as well, allowing Bam to get down to the paint, establish position, etc., the way he's been used to use over the last couple of seasons. But conversely, we've seen it go the other way, where kind of Love is down in the low post. And now if we're starting to see this additional wrinkle where Bam is out at the perimeter, I wonder if that might work a little bit better.
The only problem with it is that Kevin Love is always going to be the better 3-point shooter than Bam. So it almost seems silly to have him not spacing the floor and down low and having Bam in the corner
But it gives you the
instead.
option, though, right? You're right.
It
But it
does, I
gives you the option.
guess, but defensively it doesn't hold up is the problem. And that's why the Heat have tried this, and they've had to go away from it because Kevin Love is too small right now to play center and guard other bigs, other real centers, and he's not mobile enough to play out on the perimeter defensively. And that's sort of the problem that they keep running into is as interchangeable as it might be on offense, it's the opposite of interchangeable on defense. And that's the problem. And then to your point, Thomas Bryant wasn't exactly impressive during his first stint with the Heat. Kel'el Ware is a rookie, but I do think that, and I tweeted out, Eric Spoelstra is on the Team USA coaching staff. He is getting a front row seat into Steve Kerr using Bam at the 4. And I do wonder how much influence Spoelstra had in playing Bam almost exclusively at power forward. I don't think he's using Team USA in the Olympic Games in Paris to beta test Bam at the 4. I don't think that that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah. But I don't know that he's not doing it either. You know what I mean? Like it could just be this is the best version of the roster for us, and this is where we can get the best players on the court at the same time. That's probably it. But I bet you he designed that splash action that Bam got that corner 3 from. Like this stuff is meaningful that it's happening with Eric Spoelstra on the staff and that Spo's seeing it in person. And I don't and the whole point of, and like I said, I tweeted it out, like Spoelstra's there. He's got to be seeing this. He might be more convinced to play Bam at the 4 more. And a lot of people said, well, it would be very helpful to have Anthony Davis being the guy at the 5. And yeah, I get that. And the floor spacing with the other guys, I understand all of that. But at least theoretically, a guy like Kel'el Ware, who is 7 feet tall, who can provide rim protection with shot blocking, which Bam does not do. Bam is not a shot blocker. Right. And is a willing 3-point shooter, the way that the Heat's front office has talked about. That at least has merit in terms of being something that could work. And it's enough. It's theoretically like plausible enough that you got to at least try it. Is it going to be Miami's starting lineup? I don't know. Probably not. At least not to start the season. But is it a lineup that they can get to more often? Yeah. I don't see why not. And I think Bam is getting more and more comfortable with that too. So let's put a pin in that for now. We've got more to talk about with Kel'el Ware. It was a slow start for Kel'el Ware at Summer League on Wednesday. But the good news, he finished strong in that Summer League win. There's also some bad news in that game to a fan favorite. We'll tell you what happened next on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. That's what makes GameTime the best place to get your tickets for any event, and they take all the guesswork out of doing so. They're last-minute deals. We talked about it a lot, but guess what? You can save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports games. Let's say you're in town. Maybe you decide at the last minute you want to go catch some Marlins. Guess what? You can get those tickets for as cheap as you could possibly imagine. You get it for concerts, comedy shows, theater, whatever you're in town for, whatever events you might be looking to get them, you can find them over at GameTime, and their prices are unbeatable. You get their all-in pricing so that you can show you the total upfront, no hidden fees, no taxes, no anything else, nothing to surprise you at the end when you're waiting to pay. You know exactly how much you're paying, and you know exactly where you're going to be sitting with their seat views because it gives you a panoramic view in the app before you buy. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets for Major League Baseball or anything else with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, you just create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Miami Heat talk every day, 5 days a week, even during the offseason. If you're new to us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure that you follow us on your favorite podcast app. The Summer League Heat beat the Summer League Mavericks on Wednesday to improve to 3-0 in Las Vegas, and this Heat team could go pretty far in this Summer League tournament. There's 4 teams. After 4 games, 4 teams advance to the Summer League playoffs. And 1 team wins. So, and you obviously just play a 4-team tournament from there, and they're 3-0, so they look pretty good. A big part of that was, and has been, Kel'el Ware. Slow start on Wednesday, but he finished well. He went 9 for 12 for 24 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. So another double-double for Kel'el Ware, who looks like the best big man at Summer League in Las Vegas right now. I mean, he looks better than Alex Sarr, who went 0 for 15 the other day. Donovan Clingan has been whatever. It's
good defensively, not as good offensively. And I think you're getting the combination of both with Kel'el. At least, I mean, maybe it's just by design, but they're looking to use him to get points up on the board. And he's getting rolls to the rim. He's got those open looks. They're calling plays for him in a way that I don't think they're making for other big men out there in Summer League. And he's capitalizing. So that's an encouraging sign for the Heat.
Yeah, it hasn't always been pretty, but to your point, I do feel like Heat fans and Heat media, we get like so in the mud with the nuances of the game sometimes, with the
Heat culture in the
best
mud.
prepared. Yeah, it's like all the Heat culture, like the boxing out and the hustle stats and the deflections and the always working really hard and the knee pads and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you just need a guy to produce. And that was like the Heat's problem last year was they didn't have enough dudes to put points on the board and put rebounds on the board and block shots. I kind of like the fact that the Heat have a guy who just stuffs the box score now. And I don't need to appreciate the nuances with Kel'el Ware because there ain't none, right? Like there's no nuances with Kel'el Ware. There is not a nuanced game. And if there's a problem with this game is that it's not nuanced, right? And as obviously, he's 19, he'll get, better and more seasoned and more nuanced as it goes on. I mentioned it was a slow start, and I think maybe Heat fans are like, what are you talking about? A slow start. Guy went 9 for 12. What are you talking about? This is what I've come to realize with Kel'el Ware. And it kind of goes back to the nuances point. Nothing good happens when Kel'el Ware turns his back to the basket. Ever. Nothing good happens. The shot might go in some weird fadeaway, but it bounces off the rim and he gets like a lucky bounce, and sometimes it goes in. Nothing good happens when he puts his back to the basket. He gets out of position for rebounds. He ends up over dribbling, kind of getting into tough shots. Yeah. There was a play early in the game where this was not a back to the basket thing, but it kind of lends itself to the slow start where he got the ball at the top of the key, kind of bobbled it, had the ball stripped from him, and it was just a burnt offensive possession. But really good stuff happens when Kel'el Ware goes up, down, north, south. And that should be it. That should be his entire game. North, south, and up and down. That's when he's really good. And he could be really productive. And yes, defensively, he could be out of position sometimes. Offensively, I'd like to see that three-point shot become less theoretical and more real. And we'll get to a point at some point with that, I do think. The Heat have bought into his touch, and I think they believe that that's going to come along. But
it's part of his game.
I don't think
they're going to try to erase it.
Right, exactly. At the NBA level, he'll have Bam Adebayo next to him sometimes. And if it's not Bam Adebayo, it'll be Haywood Highsmith. It'll be NBA level defenders and coached by Eric Spoelstra and in those schemes and stuff. So defensively, I think he's going to hold up. I just like the guy that goes out there, blocks shots, scores points, gets rebounds. And I think the Heat need that. And I've been really impressed with Kel'el Ware.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they're, it's interesting because I saw this comment in one of our feeds the other day, and I thought it was a little bit of an overstatement, and I think it still is, but somebody pointed out that there are just moments there where it looks like you don't even feel like Kel'el is out on the floor. Like he can just be missing at times. And I think it's part of the learning process that you kind of laid out there.
I think it's fair.
But at the same time, there are moments where he's not making an impact. And that's to your point, like that the nuances that you were talking about, those things that don't appear on the stat sheet. Right. He just doesn't do those enough where you're like, you kind of feel him on the court. Remember how I used to talk about Caleb Martin when he was first on a two-way contract? It's like you always knew Caleb was out there, and when Caleb had played a game, because he always did something memorable, and that wound up translating into a contract for him, but having an impactful role. Kel'el just isn't there right now. Like you see him when he's out there scoring and putting up numbers, but you kind of need to feel him elsewhere when he's not just producing and also having an impact, both offensively, whether it's setting the screen, making a play, diving, whatever, doing something that kind of just makes you feel his presence out on the floor a little bit more consistently. But you know what?
I think you're right. He's 19, and tonight or today, 3 offensive rebounds. I think I'm going to go ahead and guess that was the most offensive rebounds he's had in Summer League. Most of his rebounds were defensive, which is good. Yeah. But like a defensive rebound, it just kind of happens and you move up the court. You don't really think about it. The offensive rebounds, to your point, that's the stuff you feel. That's the stuff you notice. Extra possessions, putbacks, things like that.
Like Hartenstein kind of, that kind of.
Right, exactly. Like he's 19, he's going to get better at this stuff. And we do have our concerns with Kel'el Ware, right? My back to the basket thing. not great. And that's his comfort zone. And Miami's job is to turn that comfort zone from that inefficient game that's not good to the game that is efficient and good, the north, south, up, down game. When they're able to kind of move his comfort zone from one area to the new area where he's going to be playing at the NBA level, that's when they're going to really be successful, and they're going to be able to kind of build on and grow his game, and when Kel'el Ware will be able to build on and grow his game. But that's tough sledding. I mean, I can't in Summer League, I was only there for a couple of days, but how many times did I hear, yeah, we're challenging him to rebound more? I'm like, the guy's 7 feet tall. You're challenging him to rebound more? Like, but that's their job.
Well, think
right?
about
That's
it.
the job.
Think about it just from a macro view. Like 19, as young as he is, 7 feet tall. Like, when the heck has he ever had to challenge himself? Like,
Exactly.
He's always been able to play back to the basket, because who the hell is going to stop him? When it comes to rebounding, it's always been easy because he just has to basically extend an arm and the ball's right there, and nobody else has a shot of even snatching it away from him. So now it's just a matter of kind of taking what's been so easy for him and has just been so second nature, and having to work at it and cultivate it and grow it, because you're not the monster, the physical monster that you have been your whole life. Now it's a matter of making it a skill that you continue to develop at the NBA level. But I'm encouraged, though, right? And I think you are too. I think most Heat fans are as well. There are glimpses of him being great, and there's also some unfortunate moments there where he's just not that good at all. But I think you're going to get that out of any rookie. I mean, I think we were overwhelmingly positive about Jaquez last year, and I think with good reason. But there were also moments there where he was still learning, despite the fact that he was a 4-year player at college and that he was a little bit older, high IQ and everything else. I mean, there were still moments where he looked lost out there. So I think you're always going to have those moments as a rookie. Hell, you even have them as a veteran, let's be honest. So the fact that Kel'el is still able to have those positive moments, I think far outweighs the negative ones so far. And I'm encouraged that he's going to continue to grow on that.
And still stuff the box score.
Yeah, and still,
I know it's Summer League stuff, and I get it, but at least he's dominating Summer League. You can we only have what's in front of us. You know what I mean? Like, it's what I always say. Like, this team might be the best team on paper, but in the offseason, all we got is paper, because we don't really. Right now, all we got is Summer League to judge Kel'el Ware off of, and right now he's been one of the best players in Summer League, and maybe it means nothing, but right now it's all we got, and so I'm going to take something away from it. Two more quick notes for the Heat in Summer League. Josh Christopher, after erupting for 20 points in the fourth quarter in Miami's last game because he just couldn't miss a three-pointer, went 1 of 7 from three-point range on Wednesday. So I just felt like we needed to point that out, because as much as we praise a guy, we also need to call out the guy when he doesn't play well. 3 for 13, 1 for 7 from three-point range, 9 points, 5 turnovers, a really tough game for Josh Christopher. And then the biggest news, I guess, would be Keyshawn Johnson. He leaves the game with a left ankle sprain. Didn't look awesome when it happened. Jumped up, came down, twisted the ankle. It doesn't sound like, based on the initial reporting, it doesn't sound like it's going to be serious. We'll see if his summer league is over. I mean, who knows? The Heat injury updates, not exactly the most reliable messenger, I'll say. So TBD on that, but something to look at. He didn't finish the game, obviously, left the game early.
He
right after we had him on the podcast. Is this our fault?
Yeah, I know. No, I don't want to even put that out there. Because next thing you know, no, I know, and so did I. And I don't want players to start being like, no, go on the Locked On Heat podcast. That's basically like the curse of the Madden cover or something like that. Like, you don't want that. You don't want to deal with that.
Locked On Heat podcast.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with that. So yeah, because then media day is going to be us and crickets, and like we're going to be stuffed in a corner somewhere with cobwebs out on the practice floor because nobody's going to want to talk to us to get hurt.
We should go to Celtics media day.
Yeah, we talked to so many people on Heat media day, and it wound up being the season from hell. So you know what? It's like that void.
We're just not going to go this. Oh no! Yeah. All right.
No,
speaking of injuries,
I won't say that because the year before that we talked to everybody, and we wound up going to the NBA Finals. So you know what? That's okay. As far
maybe
as
it actually doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the secret here.
That could be it. That could be. I hope that Keyshawn doesn't feel the need to rush back just because he's earning a spot, but he is so, he's so intense and so high energy, as he told us, and he just wants to continue to show out. He doesn't have anything promised to him. Like right now, he's just fighting for the two-way spot. He's fighting for the opportunity to showcase anything. We've seen this kind of thing from players in the past where they kind of have to rush back because they're feeling that pressure. I would say, to tie it into what we saw from Josh Christopher, like that might be what happened to him. It's like after that big game, you kind of feel like you're on the cusp of something, and then you kind of feel that pressure of having to go and perform and meet those expectations again, and then you wind up laying what was an unfortunate stinker there. You just hope that's not the case.
Luckily for Keshad, you could just not play in Summer League. The Heat aren't going to make a final decision on these two-way contracts until after training camp in October. So he's still got all, as long he should be healthy for October. I mean, heck, his Summer League might not even be done. We have no idea what the severity of this ankle sprain is. So we'll see. Speaking of injuries, Josh Richardson revealed his optimistic timeline to return from his shoulder surgery. But is it a realistic timeline? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Let us know in the comments section what you think about Kel'el Ware in Summer League. Are we being too optimistic? Are we too down on him? Do you think he should start? The question we've been asking all along. Also, follow us on your favorite podcast app. Ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated. Josh Richardson told reporters in Las Vegas that he might not be ready for the start of training camp as he rehabs from season-ending shoulder surgery on his right shoulder. But that does remain the optimistic timeline. He said he's optimistic that he could be there for training camp, which doesn't exactly sound like he's definitely going to be ready for training camp, right? So I am not as optimistic. I don't know how optimistic Josh Richardson really is. He was just talking to reporters. But look, the guy got hurt in February, surgery in March. He just started shooting for the first time since getting hurt in February. On July 2nd, 15 days ago. He also told reporters that he's never gone through anything this serious in terms of his injuries. So, I'm not, who knows if he's going to be ready for training camp, but this is a guy who fortunately had a player option for $3 million this summer. Had he not had that, had he just been an unrestricted free agent, no option, it was a one-year deal last year, he's unsigned right now. His NBA career is on life support. Fortunately for Josh Richardson, he had the player option. He's making $3 million next year. He's on the roster. It's guaranteed money. But, yeah, I don't know where he ends up factoring into the rotation because we don't know when he's going to be back.
He can't come back too soon. Like, that's a good point about his NBA life right here, because in order for him to take this and extend his NBA career, whether with Miami or elsewhere, he needs to be at full strength or as close to full strength, and rushing it back is probably a detriment to that. And so for him, like, I don't know how much more he can accomplish in training camp other than just getting those reps and putting that work in. But if he rushes back too quickly and he's still hurt or he's not close to 100%, then he's just going to be a liability, and he's probably going to get shut down at some point throughout the regular season, et cetera. I mean, to me, it's better for Josh, at least from my perspective, if he just, assuming he's not going to be at close to 100% or not ready yet. I mean, if he's got 100% in training camp, maybe this is all moot. But I think you're right, though. Like, this kind of delay and everything that he's been doing, like, he's probably underweight, hasn't been able to put on as much muscle through workouts and stuff like that. Like, his shooting's going to be off. Like, he's older at this point too. Like, we kind of tend to think of him
30
as
years old.
Rook too, but there are plenty of guys whose NBA careers have been cut short well before this point, and he's been in the league for a while now. So, it's probably in his best interest to kind of just concentrate on getting as close to 100% as he possibly can before training camp, and then taking that time to just rehabilitate and get the work in. Eventually, he'll be welcome back, and he'll have a role here. Like, that's not going to change. I don't know that he has to prove anything necessarily at training camp. He's not fighting for a starting spot. We already saw what happened last year in terms of him being kind of utilized as the de facto point guard. I don't think that's going to work out either. He's going to bring the ball up. He's going to be able to play defense. I think he's more comfortable in that two-guard wing spot, 3-and-D kind of thing. And if that's the case, if he can do that by returning at 100%, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks after the start of camp, or maybe even miss a couple games of the preseason, like, it's not going to change anything necessarily, but I think it improves his durability throughout the 82-game regular season, which is where he needs to show it. He needs to show it like the year before when he showed it as a member of the New Orleans Pelicans, and he wound up having an impressive postseason debut, or not debut, an impressive postseason showing with New Orleans. That's kind of what gave us, some optimism about his role in Miami, is that they were going to take back this guy who had played well in New Orleans, and they were adding him to a finals team, wound up not working out that way because of his injury. So for me, as a veteran, without anything necessarily to prove, but looking at him as a contributor and as a role player, I'd rather have him for the second half of the season than the
Yes.
first half.
Well, there's a couple of things here. I mean, you already hit on the point, but he's 30 years old. He was a second-round pick in 2015. The fact that he has been in the NBA this long is a huge win for Josh Richardson. And I'm not here to kill his NBA career. That is not what I am doing. But it sort of speaks to the point of how remarkable it is that he's even gotten. There have been, I just looked it up, in the second round of the 2015 draft, there's only 5 guys still in the NBA. You've got Josh Richardson, Chetty Osman, who might not be in the NBA. He's still a free agent. Rashawn Holmes, Pat Connaughton, Norm Powell. That's it. The entire second round of the 2015 draft. And Josh Richardson entered the draft older than all those guys, too. None of those guys, I don't think, are 30 yet. So,
Connaughton is.
Maybe Connaughton, yeah. So, look, it's fortunate, again, that he was under contract. He had that player option that he was able to pick up. The other part with Miami is that they've added competition to that position, right? They added Alec Burks. They've drafted Pelle Larsson. Those guys play exactly the same position as Josh Richardson in terms of sort of that swing kind of wing player who could be on the ball a little bit. There's going to be a lot of competition for Josh Richardson when he comes back. And to your point earlier, maybe that makes him feel rushed to get back for training camp, where he said, look, I gotta earn my spot on the depth chart, right? I know I have a spot on the roster. I got to earn my playing time here. But that actually might be a disservice depending on what the kind of shape his shoulder is going to be in. So all of that, should have said at the beginning, entirely speculative. We have no idea that his shoulder might be 100% by training camp, and his optimistic timeline ends up working out, and he's fine. I still think that he has a role to play on this team if he's healthy. But the most important part is being healthy. That's the most important part for him.
There's like a 6-month timeline usually in recovery after surgery. And if he had his in early March, that would kind of put it squarely at the beginning of September, which is right around the start of training camp. So, it's going to be a close, tight window for him to get to 100% and have to feel rushed in order to prove himself, etc. And again, I just think it would be, I think we saw last year that's not going to help anybody, that this team, if they're going to be able to look, obviously you want to avoid the play-in, you want to avoid the 8th seed and everything else like that. But this team is going to continue to define itself. If the front office feels as strongly about the playoff showings and how they far outweigh what they accomplished during the regular season as the barometer for how you view this team, then I'd rather have everybody healthy in March and in April than whatever happens in September, October, or November. So that's just the way I view it. And I don't know how the medical staff will rush him or work with him to get him back, but we'll see how it plays out. Should be interesting.
It's a long season. Like, there's really no reason. And he know who Josh Richardson is. There's no real reason to rush him back. Have him ready for the games that really matter later in the season. So, all right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. If you've not checked out our interview with Keyshawn Johnson, we highly recommend that you do our exclusive interview with him. He was a great guest. So please go check that one out and follow us on your favorite podcast app.